Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020, or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. On a walk-off wild pitch, the Rays retake first place in the American League East. It is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here. You are there at 11:42 on this Thursday night. This Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show is live from the WHBC studio in Clearwater, Florida. A 1-0 win for the Rays over the Boston Red Sox tonight. After losing Game 1 of the best-of-3 series, they take the next two, including the rubber match here tonight, and they are now a half game above Boston for first place in the division. It looked like things could have gone potentially awry after that Game 1 loss, where they kind of fell apart in extra innings, but they come on very strong last night with an 8-2 win powered by 3 home runs. And here tonight, obviously a much different win. It was their third walk-off win of the season, and also their 6th shutout. The last one was a couple of weeks ago, June 5th at Arlington against Texas. So winning, and certainly in different ways. It's been a while since the Rays have had a really low-scoring, close affair like this. It seems like they're playing one-run games almost every night, but lately have not been coming out on the winning end of them with all the walk-offs and things against them that have been going on. But instead, here tonight, Michael Wacha, of all people. You guys still want to DFA him? He goes 5 scoreless, giving up just a hit, and really didn't look too much different. The velocity was certainly much better, and he threw 75 pitches after his 80-pitch outing his last time out. So it looks like his next start, Wacha could be fully stretched out, which is certainly good news that we're already there at that point, and that he looked really, really good. Obviously, there was some concern against a strong Boston lineup that he would have some struggles, but really, as he always does, the race to 2 strikes, he was getting that 0-2 count very early. As always, struggles a little bit with the put-away pitch. He just has the changeup to go along with the fastball and the cutter, but the changeup, it seemed like he would get to 0-2, maybe throw a changeup low, ball 1, ball 2, get in 2-2 count, and then maybe punch him out, maybe going up with the fastball or something like that. And with Francisco Mejia catching him tonight instead of Zunino, I think we kind of expected that, but you probably want to give Wacha every advantage that you can, but instead they go with Mejia, trying to get some offense against the righty Pivetta, which does make sense. But it's good to see some good sequencing, and I think that's good for Mejia because maybe it's not well-deserved, but it seems like the starting pitchers have had some poor performances when they're caught by Mejia. So but good to potentially start putting that narrative to rest. And as I said, the velocity for Wacha was good. It seemed like his last time it was a lot of 93, 94. Tonight, a lot of 95s and even some 96s on the fastball, which was good, and then the cutter was about 93, 94. So it seemed like he was really feeling his stuff. I was sitting up in the party deck up basically kind of in the 300 level in left field, so I got a pretty good view of what was going on, and an exciting atmosphere at the Trop. There was a lot of great plays. I think just to keep it 0-0 going into the bottom of the ninth, you also look at the two tremendous plays made in the seventh inning. There was, of course, after the leadoff double that Ryan Thompson allowed, there was a line drive right to third base that Joey Wendell was able to make a nice catch on, and if that ball gets past him, probably a run scores and it's 1-0. And then after that, it was a base hit basically into shallow left center, kind of getting into the gap. Kiermaier makes a running play to pick it up and then throws an absolute laser to home. Good tag by Mejia to get Renfroe out at home plate. It was reviewed and it was upheld. And two really good defensive plays, and that's certainly something that we've been talking about lately, and a lot of people have been discussing it. The Rays defense, while it was still good during that losing streak, was not necessarily elite. They were, formidable, but they were not taking runs and hits off the board. Well, tonight, even with a couple of errors against them, one was against Mejia, and the other one was against Kiermaier on a throw late in the game that was a bit concerning in the ninth inning. So two errors that were not good, but neither of them ended up hurting the Rays, and a couple of really plus plays, one to take away a hit and a run, and another one after hit to take away that same run. Really impressive, and usually in a game where you're basically getting no hit through, 6 or 7 innings, it was through 7 innings the Rays were no hit, 6 2/3 of Pivetta, and then Josh Taylor finished it off. And if you're asking why Pivetta didn't finish the game, 6 2/3, 100 pitches, and only 58 were strikes, so he was not really commanding the strike zone incredibly well, but the Rays just not able to kind of square anything up against him. So usually when that happens, you get no hit through 7, you're probably not going to win the game, but thanks to some elite pitching and defense, they were able to keep it 0-0 going into the bottom of the ninth. And of course, during the losing streak, it seemed like the Rays would get their chances, whether in the 8th, 9th, or even in the 10th, to take the lead, and they're not able to do it. Well, here in the bottom of the ninth, with 2 outs, bases empty, it was Manuel Margot who pinch hit for Choi in the 7th, hit a 2-out single. Then during the at-bat to Wendell to follow, Wendell was intentionally walked, and they brought Mejia up. Margot stole second base. An error on the catcher on the throw to second allowed Margot to advance all the way to third. And on a wild pitch to the Red Sox closer, Matt Barnes, he's able to come in to score for the winning run. I believe the Rays had a walk-off on a wild pitch a couple of years ago, if not even last year. I do recall at least one. And I think they've had a walk-off walk as well. So those kind of weird ways to end a game. Usually it's a base hit or whatever. A lot of fans calling maybe for the home run in a 0-0 game in the ninth just to put it away. And I don't remember the batter, but it was late in the game with the man on base that I think it was the maybe to Verdugo in the 8th inning that it looked like it was going to be a 2-run homer and went just foul down the left field line. So the Rays, did a good job, controlling things, but also a little bit of luck went in their way as well. And in a 1-0 win, it certainly took every bit of whatever was on the Rays side. They're now 14 games above 500 at 45-31, and are in a really good place right now with a weekend series against Anaheim, and then to follow that, a road trip against the Nationals, who have been red hot, and a Blue Jays team who has been pretty good in their own right. But I think all things considered, that the fact that the Rays were able to come out on a 7-game losing streak and still beat Boston in a 3-game set and retake the division lead, and it's still late June, the Rays are still in terrific chance to win this division and set themselves up for some playoff success. They just need to keep this up, and I think really, really positive that they were able to kind of get the vibes back on their side, and looks like really nothing had ever happened. And obviously we know from last year that this is a super resilient bunch, and they certainly showed it tonight. Wander Franco 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, no doubt his worst game as a big leaguer, albeit 3 games in. The highest velocity that he's faced probably in a while. I don't think there's too many guys down in AAA that are throwing 97 that Nick Pivetta was giving him with the fastball. So he was just kind of swinging through him, and we'll talk about his at-bats because obviously I think the spotlight is still kind of on him, and he's going to be a guy, a stalwart at the top of the order. So, but in his defense, everyone in the lineup was bad and only had 2 hits over 9 innings, and again only scored 1 run. If they lose this game, we're singing a totally different tune, but because again of some really good pitching and defense, they're able to come out on the winning end, so that's obviously a good thing. Number to call the show over the course of the night, 877-566-1020. We have a line open and would love to hear from you, your thoughts on the team right now. You can also tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official, and we look forward to taking your calls and your tweets over the course of the program. Still to come, our continued breakdown of tonight's win. We'll also preview tomorrow's contest and the weekend series against the Anaheim Angels to come, and a chance for the Rays to continue to put themselves apart from the Red Sox and the Yankees in the division. So all good stuff to come. Make sure you stay tuned for the rest of the show. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Spreaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 11:53 on this Thursday night, we are back on the William Haynes Show. Again, number to call the program, 877-566-1020. We've got a line open. Would love to hear from you. And you can also drop us a line on Twitter at WHBC Official. But without further ado, tonight's 1-0 Rays win gave them a series win over Boston and allowed them to retake first place in the AL East. They are now a half game up on the Boston Red Sox. The Rays improved to 45-31 on the season, so now back 14 games above 500, 21-15 at home, and they dropped the Boston Red Sox to 44-31. They are 24-14 on the road, and I believe they now hold the best road record in the majors, I think still even after tonight's loss. For the victorious Rays, it was one run on just 2 hits, 2 errors defensively. It was an error on Mejia in the 5th inning that on a stolen base attempt on a throw down to second. The ball got away. It allowed Vasquez to get down to third, and it was Michael Wacha ultimately punching out Bobby Dalbec, and I believe he was 0 for 9 with 9 strikeouts and a walk in this series. So a player that Boston was high on going into the year, absolutely dreadful in this series. So that one doesn't come back to bite you. And the other error, it was a 1-out walk in the 9th for Rafael Devers and a fly out to center for Renfroe for out number 2. Devers heading back to first base, and after the catch and the out made, Kiermaier snapped quick throw to first base to try and get Devers out on the double play, and just a bad throw. Ball gets away from Yandy Diaz at first base, and it allows Devers to advance to second on the E8. So that was Kiermaier just pushing the issue. Probably should not have done that. I guess if it's on target, it's fine, but it was not in a 0-0 game. That was an awfully risky play. But as Kevin Cash was saying about the decision to send Margot with 2 outs on first in the ninth, it's just one of those situations where you're in a deadlock with an opponent, not much going on. You do have to push the issue a little bit, or you should at least be trying to, because no matter what sport you're talking about, football, baseball, basketball, whatever, if you're not really pushing the issue in a game like this, then it really comes off like you're lacking competitive spirit, and it's like you don't want to win the game. As Herm Edwards said, you play to win the game, and certainly the Rays did that tonight. It ended up with a couple of errors, but again, a 1-0 win, and everything is on the up and up. And for the losing Red Sox, they get shut out on 4 hits, 2 errors. Just quickly, I didn't have this prepped. I want to see if they have been shut out already this season. We're about halfway into the year. I think this was game number 75 or something like that. So we are very close to being exactly halfway through this season. Just looking quickly, they were shut out on opening day, and after that, a couple of defeats. They were shut out by the Blue Jays on May 18th. And outside of that, I'm not seeing any more, and they were shut out tonight. So this was the 3rd time that the Red Sox were shut out. And again, Boston has not lost more than 3 games in a row this season. I think the only other teams to do that are the Dodgers and the Mets. And to show you that a team that doesn't lose games consecutively very often, they've lost the last 2 to the Rays. And I was just on the link, but I'll go back to it, where Boston will go now as they continue their season. And I believe they're going to fly home, and they have a weekend series with the New York Yankees, who I think had a series victory over the Royals this week. So that will be crucial. I think maybe even if the Yankees win or sweep that series, maybe we're talking about them overtaking Boston, and maybe the Red Sox hitting a midseason slump. But we'll keep our eyes on that and see how that goes. And then the 2 errors for Boston, one by Vasquez on the throw that allowed Margot to get to third on the stolen base attempt, and the other error was on Chavis that allowed, I believe that was just a straight error, by that allowed Meadows to reach base in the 7th, and with it being called an error, the no-hitter was still going on, so that was kind of a weird moment. So those were the 2 errors, and obviously that one, especially in the 9th, ended up coming to haunt the Red Sox. And so that was the 5th error this series for Boston alone. I think going into yesterday's game, they were leading the majors in errors with 54, and the Rays had the least errors in the majors with 29. So the disparity between that was very clear in this series, and Boston's defensive ineptitude ended up definitely coming back to hurt them, especially in this game. And I think that play to Margot is kind of what they'll be walking away from, shaking their heads as they get on the plane before an incredibly big series against the Yankees in the first one this season in Fenway Park. And, of course, 100%, that will be a very good series to watch. And on prime time this weekend, of course, all that stuff, as you know. And because with how bad the Rays have been in extras this year with a 3-9 record, if you could have just kept that game 0-0 going into the 10th, we could be talking about a different result. And I think that very well may have been the case. But the Rays forced the issue again, and I think that's really what the important part is. They decided to send Margot there because there was not a whole lot of offense to be had. And as has happened so much this season, not only are you able to steal second, but I think this day and age, as much as, with the metrics, the pop time and the throw to second and everything being measured in those metrics, like with every other position, I don't think defense is valued as much in catchers as they have been in years past. And Christian Vazquez, not a bad defensive catcher by any means, but I think of maybe some games against the Blue Jays where their catchers aren't very good defensively. Not only can you run on them, but you force them to make a bad throw to second, it gets into the outfield, you got third base. So you basically just get 2 free bases, and especially on a night like tonight where you get 2 hits over 9 innings, to get a man 90 feet away from home plate, definitely, why wouldn't you want to give yourself a chance to do that? So good for them on doing it, and for Boston, defense will come back to haunt you. Their pitching staff is not built to last. Even with Nick Pavetta's good start tonight, he's still having the worst month of the season, I think, in the month of June, as is a lot of other Boston pitchers. So if they're going to be shut out, or the offense slows down a little bit, I think there's some guys that have been cooling off. They're going to find themselves in a really tough situation, and I think the Rays, who are built to win on all sides of the ball, I think if they can kind of find their stride, and certainly this series victory was a huge shot in the arm, as much as I know that's has kind of a double meaning these days. A shot of adrenaline, I mean, to keep this team going in the right direction and have them feel good about themselves. I think is a great thing, and it's funny. We're right back where we were before the losing streak. No longer with the best record in the majors, but a team that had a hold on first place in the division, and one of the toughest divisions maybe in all of sports, and certainly in baseball, I think up there maybe with just the National League West, and are all looking good again on all sides of the ball, and are setting themselves up well for not only to get into the postseason, but even advance, even with the injury of Glasnow, even if he's not able to come back. I think you still feel great about where the team is at right now. The decisions for the pitchers getting the win, and a ton of them for him this season. JP Fireisen, he was 0-2 with Milwaukee. So far since coming over to Tampa Bay, or he was 0-1 with Milwaukee, I believe. Since coming to the Rays, he is now 4-1 on the season. His scoreless inning in the ninth allowed the Rays to walk it off in a 0-0 game, of course, in that wild pitch that we've talked so much about already tonight. And it was not necessarily easy. They had Rafael Devers at second base with 2 outs because, again, the error to Kiermaier on the throw to first that went wide. But it was Enrique Hernandez grounding out to Franco, and maybe as much struggles as Wander had at the plate tonight, he was very, very good defensively. And I believe both of the really good plays were against Kike Hernandez. A good play to retire him there. Again, a hit, would score a run probably. And I think it was in the fifth with 1 out. It would, I guess, been called an infield single, but it was not in the infield dirt. It was a hard-hit ground ball into the outfield grass that he had to make a ranging play to go grab, and then kind of reset himself and make a quick throw to first. And boy, has those throws been getting to first base in a hurry. I'm not even sure Adames was getting those throws in that quickly, and seeing why he's got the 80 grade arm. It plays certainly over at third base, but I think shortstop. Certainly tonight we're seeing that's definitely his natural position, and you see why the Rays were making the moves that they were in the infield to open that door up for Franco. Speaking of that, and then we'll get kind of into tonight. I know I'm a bit all over the place, but the roster move that the Rays made. Taylor Walls went on the injured list with a sore wrist. Apparently he had been that had been plaguing him for a couple of weeks now, and he was just trying to play through it, and it was re-aggravated on a diving grab that he made last night, and he was a late scratch from the lineup yesterday with the issue, and it seemed like he was going to be day-to-day, no injured list stint, and we were even talking about it, that even if he didn't need to, maybe just to make room on the roster, because who else are you going to move around? This team desperately needed a pitcher. There's no way they could have gone into tonight's game with Michael Wacha on the mound without a fresh arm, because Fairbanks certainly was not available. I don't think they wanted to use Fireisen, but they kind of had to. And a guy in Kittredge and probably Castillo that they wanted to save for Friday, tomorrow. They needed somebody. And it seemed like the clear move to make, I think, was to play it safe with Taylor Walls. And they recall from Durham Drew Rasmussen, who absolutely dazzled in his first appearance in a Rays uniform in Seattle, where he recorded 5 outs facing 5 men. He struck out 4 of the 5. And then I think just got a ground ball to the other one. Looked absolutely terrific. Here tonight, gave up a hit in 1 inning that was in the 6th after Wacha departed. Facing the top of the order, he struck out Chavis and Verdugo, and then got into a little bit of a bad spot, giving up a single to Martinez and walked Bogarts, but was able to retire Devers on a ground ball to second base. to retire the side. And that was a terrific play by Brandon Lowen. We talk about it all the time. Not only how good is he, in the middle infield and turning double plays, and he's one of the best in the league at doing that, but he's also a terrific second baseman playing in the shift. And in that moment, he was in shallow right, between first and second base, and the lefty Devers, pulled the ground ball. And again, a single through there scores a run in the sixth, and then, that game may be going a different way. Instead, it's, kind of to Lau in the shift, and he has to make kind of a ranging play to run over, not only to get it, but from shallow right to make the throw to first, and in time to get a hustling Devers, and he's able to get the throw, which was incredibly crucial. So even with Brandon Lau's struggles at the plate tonight, and he ended up going 0 for 1 with 2 walks and a hit by pitch. So his on-base percentage certainly going through the roof there with his performance tonight. But even when he's struggling at the plate, and as mightily as you could imagine it has been at times for Brandon Lau, and I think after his strikeout against the lefty Josh Taylor last night, he put him to 7 for 83 on the season against lefties, which I think is like an 0.80 average or around there. That's certainly under 100 average. But he's always been very good defensively and has been good with whatever the Rays have asked for him, playing in the shift, all that kind of stuff. So wanted to give him props, and I think he deserves that. Certainly most nights, and that saved a run probably in the sixth. But back to the point about recalling Rasmussen. So the first bases that he had given up, and then they were back to back, not great, but facing two terrific hitters in JD Martinez and Xander Bogaerts. Those are two really, really tough outs right now. Both are hitting over 300. My goodness, JD at 305 and Bogaerts at 321. That almost just doesn't seem real. I had kind of forgotten to look at that, and Verdugo is hitting 282. So you would think certainly that those guys would come down to earth. There is zero way that those guys could keep up that pace throughout a full 162-game season. And once they cool off and the pitching maybe gets worn out in August, that's a team that could be on a tailspin in a hurry, maybe even after the trade deadline when they're not able to get any reinforcements. And with Chaim Bloom, the former Rays executive running things over there, I'm not sure that they would want to, give up pieces in what is a very shallow prospect pool in their farm system. So they could find themselves between a rock and a hard place if the Rays can get hot and, the things that have all been working in the Red Sox favor start falling apart. I think that is a likely possibility and something I've been kind of preaching all season, or kind of predicting either way. But getting back to Rasmussen again, Taylor Walls going on the IL. Even if he didn't need it, I think it was good. Yeah, I think he probably did need it. Again, he said he'd been playing through it for a couple weeks and it was re-aggravated. Go ahead and make the safe move, because not only do you want to make sure he's healthy, but I don't think you necessarily need him right now with who you've got in the infield currently on the 26-man roster. And I think also, not that Wander needs it, he's a guy that's obviously very confident in himself and comfortable, and he certainly sees that moment there in his debut with the home run and the double, and the home run to tie the game and all those things. Proved from right out of the gate that he was there for the big moment, and he's not going to shy away from it. But kind of like with Adames, and I'm not really comparing this because it's not, but it's somewhat similar when the Rays dealt Hechavarria to the Pirates to open the door wide open for Adames to play shortstop every day in 18. I think in some ways kind of a similar situation. While Wander can play shortstop and third base, they've also got Wendell and Yandy along with Choi that they want to get everyday playing time. So the best way to do that, Choi at first, and then maybe Yandy and Wendell splitting time at third base, and have Franco at shortstop. If you're trying to get Taylor Walls playing time in there as well at short, and then you want to get Franco in at third, well, then you're not really able to play some nights Wendell or Yandy, and I think they want to have at least one, if not both of those two in the lineup most nights. So it was just going to get a little tricky over there. And if Franco turns out that he's going to need more time in Durham, and more nights like tonight would lead you to believe that, but I don't think we're still there. I think he still has looked very, very impressive in his first 3 games. So if he plays very well, then maybe when Walls is ready to come off the IL, you just have him play in Durham like he did, to start the season. And then if Franco comes back down to earth in about a week and a half's time, and he's still hitting maybe under 200, although maybe that is not the metric they're looking at, but maybe if he's not looking comfortable at all at the plate, then maybe they'll send him back down and you can bring Walls back up in his stead. So I think they bought themselves some time. Not that you want an injury, but if there is such a thing as an injury coming at a right time, I think maybe for Walls that would be the case. I think just kind of eases, not necessarily tension, but opens the door for Wander everyday playing time with ease, especially at shortstop, which is going to be the position they want him at most. And that's where he was playing at most in Durham, which tells you that that's where they want him to play. Obviously, I think 27 of his 39 games in AAA were at shortstop. So give him that ability and make it easier for the other guys in the infield to get playing time. And also that Walls move allowed them to bring up Rasmussen, who was sent down in Franco's place when he was initially called up. So Rasmussen, a guy who has looked, I think, still pretty good through his first 2 appearances, a guy that can pitch a couple of innings here and there. I think can even be a starter if they want him to, but might end up being a 1-inning guy, but more of a stretch if they need. So that's a piece, especially right now that they're going to want in the bullpen. Him along with McHugh, I think, are very valuable assets to have while you're still trying to get this rotation back on its feet, really for the first time since Glasnow's injury, because I think until kind of McClanahan start and maybe Walker start here tonight, you felt like things were kind of reeling because all the rotation had looked bad their first time through after the Glasnow injury. Yarbrough looked very bad on Tuesday, so I think the thought was that they were going to need some depth pieces just to get through innings until things could kind of reset. But McClanahan has looked very good. I think you feel infinitely better about Walker than you did after that Seattle start. And then you've got kind of a mixed bag with Yarbrough and Rich Hill. And then, of course, we'll see Fleming behind an opener against Anaheim tomorrow. And a guy that pretty much is what he is, I think, is a 4 to 5 inning guy that can limit the damage and can just kind of frustrate guys, but isn't much more than that. So with a lack of a de facto ace, there's going to be more innings to get. And I think having a guy like Rasmussen in your bullpen certainly is a good thing anytime he's looking well, but they could add maybe some length is a good thing as well. So a very long-winded way of saying I think things maybe broke in the right direction for the Rays front office, because going into the season we knew there was a lot of difficult decisions that would have to be made. This one was not so difficult. Once they decided to bring up Wander, you got to give Franco his fair shake, and he needs kind of everyday playing time so you can evaluate if he's ready right now. And so you don't have to worry about Wall still on the roster. And right now I don't think you have to worry too much about where the bullpen is at with what Rasmussen could do. And I'm not sure when he last pitched at Durham, but with him only going an inning tonight, he could maybe go Friday and even Saturday if they want him to. And then I think Fairbanks will be ready probably Friday, but certainly Saturday. So I think now, as bad as Tuesday night was, I think they fully recovered thanks to a couple of good starts, 5 innings each from Hill and Walker. And like we also said, I think a couple nights ago, managing expectations for these starters. If the bullpen is in good shape, 5 innings scoreless should be more than enough between not only the bullpen and how good it's looked, but also what the lineup can do. Even on somewhat of an off night, if they can put up 3 or 4, that should obviously be enough to win if you're only giving up 1 or 2 runs. So I think anytime you win, you feel good about the team, but I think, like I said, things are breaking in the right direction for the team. The starting lineup tonight, defense first in the outfield from left to right, it was Meadows, Kiermaier, and Rosarena. And then in the infield from third to first, Wendell at third, Franco at shortstop, Lau at second, Diaz at first, Francisco Mejia was the catcher, and the DH was Ji-Man Choi. So somewhat what we expected. Meadows playing the field, and anytime you do that, you hold your breath a little bit, but I think looked fine over there today. They end up DHing Choi against the righty Pivetta. I thought maybe he would start at first base, but they wanted to get Diaz and Wendell in the lineup, and when you do that, Choi is either going to be on the bench, coming in as a pinch hitter probably, or you just DH him, and I think the odd man out in the outfield tonight was basically Margot, who ended up pinch hitting for Troy later. So they ended up getting both guys in the game, and that's typically how it goes. Whoever doesn't, start will probably come in the game if they're trailing, and it's a favorable pinch hitting spot. And the way things have gone this year, that seems to be most nights. And then everything else pretty traditional. Mejia, as the catchers are now on kind of a day-on, day-off basis, even with, I think, Zunino clearly being the better of the two, and I think is seriously making a legitimate bid for an All-Star appearance. And I would love to see Z behind home plate in the All-Star game this year. I think that would be really cool to see with how far he's come in a Rays uniform. And Franco's second straight day at shortstop, and obviously he looked very, very terrific over there between second and third base, and was moving all across the field really with the shifts. And that's nothing new. The order, the batting order: Brandon Lau, Franco, Arozarena, Meadows, Diaz, Choi, and then the bottom three: Wendell, Mejia, and Kiermaier. So Brandon Lau continues to lead off against righties. It worked out good enough yesterday with the home run and the double, and also a walk in there. And I think we felt infinitely better about him. And tonight, not necessarily wowing, an 0 for 1 with a strikeout. And in his 3 other plate appearances, walked twice and then was hit by a pitch. I can't really speak for it. I have not seen a replay or any video. Since it didn't end up really costing the Rays with the final score, I don't think much will be made of it. But he was out on the bases. He worked a leadoff walk in the 4th, and then after an Arozarena fly out in the fly out to right for out number 2, I guess Lau didn't get back to first base, maybe, or he didn't touch the bag, something strange, and he ended up being called out. I don't think anyone in the stadium really expected it either, because Austin Meadows was announced, and he came up to bat, so he thought everything was normal. And then you see the Red Sox come off the field. Meadows a bit confused, and he ends up going back to the dugout. There's no replay or anything, at least in the stadium. I'm sure there was on the telecast what the issue was. So a weird, strange thing from Lau there. I never really heard or seen anything quite like that before. I mean, I've seen guys missing first base on a double or a home run or something like that, but that was obviously not the case because he was already on first with the walk. So I heard that he missed the bag, but I can only assume that was coming back in, and maybe if they threw to first and he wasn't standing on the bag, something like that, and he was just called out. That's what I assume it would have to be. And then you get hit by a pitch in the 6th. I don't really know how to evaluate those. To me, those are kind of a wash. In the 6th, maybe if it was in a 2-strike count, then I guess you can hold it against him if you want, but it seems like he's seeing the ball a little bit better these days. It was on a 2-2 count, and just a slider that ran up and in on him, and so good for him to just kind of lean into it and take his base there. That was with 2 outs and the base is empty, and Franco with a strikeout, not able to do anything with it. And then in the 8th inning, was able to work a walk with Kiermaier at second base after the 1-out double. So doesn't necessarily drive in the run, but kind of like in Yandy Diaz type fashion, taking a page out of his playbook, just passing the baton to the next man, which was Franco, to make it runners at the corners with 2 outs. And Arozarena ended up popping out to end that inning, and so that was Lau's night. By the way, I guess before we go one by one, just to overcap the inning by inning and the scoring chances for the team. Nick Pivetta obviously having the no-hitter through 6 2/3, and the Sox carried the total bid through 7 1/3. It was the double in the 8th for Kiermaier that broke it up. The combined no bid. Pivetta struck out the side in the 1st, 1 2 3 in the 2nd, 3rd, faced the minimum in the 4th, and a scoreless 5th. So I had to face only 1 over the minimum through 5, a 2-out hit by pitch to Lau, and again he struck out Franco to follow. So 6 really just stellar innings, and again no hit innings as well. Came out to start the 7th, a fly out for Arozarena for out number 1. Then Meadows put the ball on the ground like he's done a lot to first base, and it was over there at first base. I think that was I think that was Michael Chavis out there because they had just made the move where they pinch it for Dahlbeck, who started the game at first, and so Chavis had to move from second over to first base. And I don't know if he's uncomfortable over there or just wasn't ready to play or what, but it was just a regular kind of ground ball to first base, and he just kind of whiffed on it in and out of the glove kind of thing, and good on Meadows for running it out. And so that put the first base runner in a while for Pivetta, a ground out to shortstop for Diaz, and it seems like he's doing that a lot. Did it twice tonight. Moved Meadows over to second base with 2 outs, so a single would drive in a run. Then they, after Manuel Margot was announced as he was going to pitch in for Choi to get the righty and lefty advantage, once he was announced, they take Pivetta out of the game with a no-hitter. In the 7th, you don't see that very much, but Pivetta had 100 pitches. If Choi was announced, I think maybe they would have let him face him with 2 outs, and then I don't know exactly where you go from there. But in a 0-0 game and in a long season, and I think some concerns with the pitching depth on that team, no doubt the Red Sox made the right move to take Pivetta out, but you don't see that very often. A starting pitcher having a no-hit bid through 6 2/3 and he gets pulled, but tonight was one of those rare nights. And it doesn't even matter. They intentionally walk Manuel Margot anyway because they brought in the lefty Darwinzon Hernandez, to face Margot, and it didn't even matter, I guess, because they intentionally walked him to bring up the lefty Wendell, who ultimately flew out to left. So that's kind of a weird situation, but it didn't really matter with 2 outs. I guess they felt really comfortable with Darwinzon matchup on Wendell, and it ended up working out. Then in the 8th, a 1-out double for Kiermaier, and then a walk for Lau to make it first and second with 1 out. Then Franco puts it on the ground and is able to very easily run out kind of a double play type ball to make it runners at the corners. Franco steals second base on kind of a defensive indifference, but I think was scored as a stolen base. And it was. So the first stolen base, and I was there. I didn't really see it. I wasn't paying attention, but I guess I will say that I was there and I saw Franco's first stolen base. So has pretty much checked off everything. I think the only thing he's missing is a triple as far as kind of the easy ones. Got a first hit, first home run, first double. He does not have a single yet either, which is kind of strange. That's the one. So a single and a triple, and of course he's already walked several times as well, and with the 3 strikeouts tonight. So has checked off just about every box, and with the run scored as well. So in the stolen base. Also, so he's pretty much in 3 games made his way almost all the way around as far as what you look for when a guy comes up to the big leagues. So he stole to make it second and third with 2 outs, and a Rosarena capped off an 0 for 4 with a pop up to the catcher. I thought it was almost going to go into foul territory, but a nice catch by Christian Vazquez, which he ultimately kind of put the Sox in a bad spot the very next inning, and of course. A 2-out single with the bases empty for Manuel Margot, and then they intentionally walk. They had not done it yet. It was, I think, on the 1-0 pitch to Wendell. It was outside, and Margot steals second. The throw from the catcher Vasquez to second base was no good. Gets into the outfield. It allows Margot to get up and scamper to third. Then with a 2-0 count to Wendell. And it was a righty on lefty with Matt Barnes. They just decided to intentionally walk Wendell because, again, the only run that makes a difference is the one at third. With first and second base open, they could have intentionally walked Mejia if they wanted to, but you don't really want to bring up Kiermaier. So they bring up Mejia, and it doesn't even matter because on an 0-2 pitch, he had him down 0-2, and with 2 outs. That's how close it was. Or I guess you would say on the 0-1 pitch, although he swung at it, but it got all the way to the backstop. And Margot made the aggressive decision, and I think the right one, to go for home, and it ultimately worked out. This was a guy, you talk about cojones on the bases, this was a guy that tried to steal home against Clayton Kershaw in the World Series last year. He is really fearless. He fears nothing. And so, of course, on a wild pitch that gets to the backstop, he's going to try and walk the thing off. and he certainly does that. Mejia, I guess 0-2, and that's where it'll always be. I guess we'll never know if Mejia would come through in that spot, and thankfully that we didn't have to find out. Mejia, I think, has been kind of off and on lately. He had an 0-for-3 tonight, and I'm not quite sure where he stands right now. Like I said, has been awfully inconsistent since coming off the IL with the intercostal issue with the ribs, when he said he had trouble breathing. That was over a month ago, but wonder maybe he's still being plagued with that. It's hard to tell, or he just has not really made his way back, kind of like with Choi. But I think Choi is still playing through some pain. That would probably be my only explanation of his struggles right now. So now that we've gone through that, the rest of the lineup, and it'll be somewhat brief. Franco 0-for-4 with 3 strikeouts. Looking at his at-bats tonight, because we're still on Wander watch, obviously still early. The first at-bat, good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Just got 3 fastballs over the plate and swung and missed at all of them. 96, 97, and 97. So not much else to say other than that. Then welcome to the big leagues, Wander. Then in the 4th inning, struck out looking with Brandon last inning at first base. And that's weird to see him. I mean, he's taken a lot of gutsy pitches on the corners and had worked out for him. It was against Nick Pivetta again. He had taken a knuckle curve at the top of the zone for strike 1, then fouled off the knuckle curve low for strike 2, so immediately in the 0-2 hole once again. You'd think he'd give him the fastball, but instead tries to go back to the knuckle curve low. Good for Wander taking it. A sign of an uncomfortable, or I don't want to say bad hitter because I'm talking about Brandon Lau, but a guy that will chase a pitch for strike 2 and then chase it again for strike 3 back to back. Lau has done that a lot. Meadows has done that. But obviously you prefer them to not. And Franco did not do it in that spot, but on the 1-2, got a fastball that he was standing in hitting lefty against Pivetta and still looking for his first hit as a lefty. All of his stuff in his first game came as a righty batter. So against the righty Pivetta, it was a fastball up and away in the corner. Where I'm looking on ESPN.com, it was right on the border. And I was sitting again up in kind of the nosebleed bleachers tonight, so I was far away. Could see the pitches coming in, and it kind of if they were egregiously inside or outside, that one was kind of right on the border. And home plate umpire Mark Rippinger, who I think was kind of off and on tonight, as a lot of umps have been this season, decides to ring him up there. So that had worked out a lot for Franco in his first 2 games, taking borderline pitches for balls. And it's kind of cool to see him get kind of those calls as, a guy making his major league debut and is already kind of getting calls from umpires. I think that's says a lot about maybe his cachet as a prospect. Then in the 6th inning, again with a man on first, this time with 2 outs, he strikes out swinging again against Pivetta, opens him up with a knuckle curve that he takes probably outside for strike 1, so just kind of a tough break for him there, and couldn't help but get into the 0-2 hole again. Chases the knuckle curve down and in, and fouls off a couple of fastballs at 95 and 94, so the velo had come back down a little bit, and then chased the knuckle curve down and in again. So again, a guy had a no-hitter through 6 2/3. I'm not going to bash Franco for struggling against him because everyone did. I mean, no one got a single hit against the guy, so how are you going to knock Franco for going 0-for-3 against him? But chasing a couple of pitches, and I also predicted that, just the way that the Rays hitters have been looking lately. I saw the knuckle curve on a scouting report, and I said it last night. You can go to the tapes. I was like, the Rays hitters are going to struggle against that pitch tonight, and they did, and Franco probably right up there with any of them. And struggled with the fastball. Either was chasing him, or swinging through him, or fouling him off. Was not able to make solid contact, and did not put the ball in play until the 8th inning, where he was able to kind of run out a double play ball. That at bat in the 8th, they had brought in Adam Ottavino to face him. It was the lefty Darwinzon Hernandez that was in, and it seemed like it was obvious that they didn't want to see Franco from the right side of the plate. I don't know if that's going to end up being his better side. We won't know that for quite some time. He's looked pretty natural at both sides of the plate. I mean, Andy Fried, growing up an Orioles fan, one of the Rays radio broadcasters, compared him kind of to Eddie Murray, who is regarded as maybe one of the best switch hitters of all time. So if Franco obviously comes anywhere close to that, we're talking about a heck of a ball player. But has been much better from the right side, at least so far. So they bring in the righty Ottavino to face him, to move him again to the left side. And on the first pitch that he sees, a slider down and away. It's going to be tough to kind of remember or to kind of try and figure out on the fly where he's hitting based on who the pitcher is. So a slider down and away that he just kind of nubs a cue shot on and is able to run it out. And he's been awfully quick, looked quick on the base path. And not a guy that I think is going to be bouncing into too many double plays with how quick he gets up the line, kind of like a Manuel Margot type, at least in that regard. The rest of the lineup, Randy Arozarena goes 0 for 4 with a strikeout. The team as a whole, they go 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. All these names 0 for 1, Wendell, Mejia, Arozarena, and Franco. And the reason I brought that up is because that's the only at-bat of Arozarena's that I really remember. Put the ball in the air a couple of times, and a couple of times with some good authority. So was certainly close. I think it's been a little while since he hit a home run. I think he hit one in Seattle, but before that, not too much. And I think he's got, 10 home runs on the season, which is not bad, but maybe not exactly what we expected. Even though I think we all knew he was going to come back down to earth. He's hitting .259 right now. And a 0 for 4 is never good. In the 3 spot against a righty kind of surprises me. I mean, he hit 5th against a righty yesterday. So, and he went 0 for 3 with a walk-in hit by pitch. So I don't know exactly what changes Cash's mind that he would want to move him up in the order against another right-hander, but he did that and didn't work out too well. Meadows 0 for 4, reached base via an error in the 7th and put the ball in the air a couple of times. Again, I think those were with some good authority as well, and then popped out to start the 9th. Yandy Diaz 0 for 3 with a walk, so good to see him being maybe more comfortable at the plate. That's a Yandy Diaz game, a couple groundouts to shortstop and a walk, and then flew out to center for the second out in the 9th inning. Wendell 0 for 3. With a couple strikeouts, was intentionally walked in the 9th, and that was really his only claim to fame tonight. That was on a 2-0 pitch, and they just decided they didn't want to see him anymore. And then obviously Margot came home on the wild pitch right after that. Mejia 0 for 3 with a strikeout, and then also Kiermaier 1 for 3 with a double. It was his 8th of the year in the 8th inning. And ends up getting all the way to third base, but could not come across to score. And that broke up the no-hitter again in the 8th inning. Looking at on that pitch that he did damage against, it was the lefty Darwinzon Hernandez. So lefty on lefty, got all fastballs in the at-bat on a 1-1 count. Got a 93 down and away, and he was able to hit the other way, as you would expect, into left field, and was awfully exciting. It was one of those that's for Kiermaier that looks like just kind of a well-struck single, but because of how quick he gets out of the box and how quick he runs, is able to turn it into a hustle double. So living up to kind of his walk-up song, every day he's hustling, and he was today with his 8th double of the season. And outside of that, not much to say. Again, they went 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. That doesn't as much matter to me. I mean, they got 2 hits on the night, and everyone was just kind of off and facing some very good pitching. That's going to happen. The Red Sox were in first place going into tonight for a reason. They're a good ball club, but good on the Rays. They're now a half game over Boston for first place in the AL East. 9 strikeouts, which is good anytime you keep it under 10. They also walked 5 times, which is very good. And as good as Nick Pivetta was, it was not necessarily easy. 100 pitches, 58 strikes, and he established the first pitch strike to 16 of the 23 batters. So a pretty good percentage, but it maybe start off 0-1, and then it would be 2-1, 3-1, whatever. And he did issue a couple walks, and then the other 3 came from the bullpen, including Matt Barnes. Or that was an intentional walk, but you still charge it to the pitcher. And that was pretty much it. They saw 137 total pitches, 80 for strikes. So even, in a night where you get 2 hits, they still see a fair amount of pitches. So that's good to see. Talking now about the pitching, Michael Wacha with the start, and obviously in a much better light now, and is not going to maybe be this good every night, but I thought was really impressive. 5 innings scoreless, giving up only 1 hit and a couple of walks, 7 strikeouts. I feel like maybe he's almost better when he walks a couple, because when he walks 0, it seems like he's just throwing meatballs over the plate. I would almost rather you be trying to kind of pitch the corners, at least trying to get some calls. So you're never really going to, I guess, applaud walks, but kind of like Yarbrough's cutter when he's kind of hitting guys. Not that you really want to hit batters, but that when he can get that pitch up and in, it seems like that's when he's at his best. So kind of in that same light. He threw 75 total pitches, 54 for strikes. So 5 pitches less than his last outing, but I think there was no need to bring him in the 6th to face the top of the order a third time through in a 0-0 game. I think you're kind of asking for trouble trying to do that, and so they make the smart move to not do it. And again, manage expectations, and be content with what you get, especially for a guy that gave up 11 hits his last time out and gave up 1 over 5 tonight. Was striking out a bunch early, struck out 3 in the first after a walk or mixed in there, struck out 2 in the second and 1 in the third. So he was really going with the punch outs early, and then only got 1 punch out over the next 2 frames, 3 pop outs in the 4th, and then in the 5th with a runner at 3rd and 2 outs, he struck out Bobby Dahlbeck, who, as I said, I believe was 0 for 9 with 9 strikeouts in the series and then a walk mixed in there. So a bunch of punch outs for Dahlbeck, who is now hitting 209 on the season, and a guy that I thought the Red Sox were hoping to get some value out of. 75 pitches, 54 strikes, so pounding the strike zone as you would expect. The race to 2 strikes, and this is perhaps the most impressive stat. He faced 18 batters. He went up 0-1 to 16 of the 18 batters he faced. So basically automatic 0-1, and then a lot of times he would throw another fastball to get up 0-2. And then try and get some chase on the changeup. He was able to get a little bit, and like I said in the open, it would maybe be 1-2, 2-2, and then maybe would get him again on the fastball. So some good sequencing there. That changeup is not a put-away pitch by any means, but it's what he's got. Has a curveball. I don't know why he doesn't throw it more. I would prefer to see it, and has even got a pitch, I think, with some slider-type action, but really he's just a fastball cutter changeup guy. But again, the velo was up a little bit as well. 95 was touching 96, so I think was much more comfortable tonight. And I guess he chose to wear the Sunday kind of, I guess the light blues, if you will. And I believe the Rays said that that's up to the starting pitcher. So a lot of guys are opting for that light blue during the week, which is a bit strange. That was the second straight night that they wore that this series. So that was a bit weird. We've yet to see Franco in the all-home whites. That's kind of hard to believe. Maybe we'll see him in that this weekend. Maybe once, probably tomorrow. Or hard to say, because we'll definitely be seeing him in the light blue on Sunday. But enough uniform talk. After the 5 from Wacha, Rasmussen in the 6th, and I'll try and keep this quick because I kind of already talked about that, but gave up a couple base runners, but when they happen to be Martinez and Bogarts, who are both hitting over 300, again, you're not the only guy that are allowing hits or walks to those guys. Obviously, that's why the numbers are what they are. But struck out the first 2 batters of that inning and then was able to work out of some trouble getting Devers to ground out, who, although a great RBI man, has, I think, pretty much struggled in this series. So it's a good job by the whole pitching staff to kind of quiet him and limit his damage to an absolute minimum. 21 pitches, 13 strikes is good in there as well. 4 for 5 in establishing the first pitch strike, and took the velo a little bit to get warmed up, but once it did, I mean, he was hitting 98 on the radar gun and looked terrific. Thompson getting a couple of outs in the 7th, allowed a leadoff double to Renfroe, that liner to Wendell, and then basically what should have been an RBI single to Vasquez, but an incredible play by Kiermaier to remind us he is still the best center fielder probably in baseball, to throw out Renfroe at home plate, and basically saved Thompson's bacon. They go to Whistler there with Vasquez at first and 2 outs, and they end up or he was actually at second base after the throw home. So a man at second with 2 outs. Whistler comes in, and they actually end up getting him picked off between second and third. So didn't have to face a batter in that one, but did get the out. And then Whistler worked out of a 1-out walk in the 8th to get through that inning scoreless and threw 18 pitches there. And then Feyereisen closing it out, or kind of, in the top of the 9th to keep it scoreless. A 1-out walk to Devers, an error by Kiermaier allows him to get to second with 2 outs, and then gets Hernandez to ground out to Wander. Franco, who made a nice play to get him out at first. So the only comment really that I have, Thompson, I kind of warned, I predicted that he wouldn't pitch tonight because it would be on a third straight day. And I guess what I should have said, the Rays may pitch him on a third straight day, but it may not necessarily work out, and it certainly didn't, because allowed what should have been hits to all three of the men that he faced: a double to Renfroe, a single for Vasquez, and a liner that just happened to be right to Wendell. So you talk about kind of that luck factor. That was certainly there in that moment. Not that you don't want to give credit to the defense and Wendell specifically, because I do, but not a great outing for Thompson, to say the least. Was just giving up, and maybe not that he didn't have his best stuff, but at least was giving up very hard contact, which is a sign of a pitcher maybe struggling a little bit. And then Whistler and Feyereisen I thought were fine, and just kind of normal performances for them. And for Whistler, I think has yet to give up a run as a Ray, and has got his ERA down almost 2 whole runs. He was on the wrong side of 6 coming in, and he's got it all the way down to 456. So it looks like whatever pixie dust pitching coach Cal Snyder has sprinkled on him is working wonders, which of course is no surprise. 132 total pitches thrown by the staff, 87 for strikes, and so that closes out the conversation. The win, great to take the series, great to take the division lead, and got to take care of business this weekend against Anaheim. That's no joke. So still to come in the program, not much of the show left. What we're going to do when we return from the break is just to preview tomorrow's contest, talk a little bit more of kind of the whole series, just to give you an overview of what to expect and all that stuff. But even though the program is coming to kind of a close, I want you to know that we're still taking calls. Would still like to hear from you at 877-566-1020 is the phone line, still open. At WHBC Official is where you can tweet us as well. So don't go anywhere. Still a little bit of show when we come back.
Hey Rays fans, William will be right back. We're in a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us internationally toll-free at 877-566-1020 or tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official. Also, we'd like you to stay tuned for William's other podcasting projects at speaker.com/user/WHBC.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 12:44 on this early Friday morning, we return on the William Haynes Show. The last thing that we have left on the program is to talk a little bit about this weekend series against the Anaheim Angels, and specifically previewing tomorrow's game. But To start overall, the Rays coming off a couple straight victories and a series victory over the Boston Red Sox will meet for a 3-game weekend set at home against Los Angeles Angels. I call them Anaheim. They are 36-38 right now, and they are 15-19 this year on the road. The pitching matchups, it looks like for this series, it will be Griffin Canning against Josh Fleming behind an opener. Tomorrow it'll be Kit to start, Fleming to follow. It looks like it'll be Alex Cobb against Shane McClanahan on Saturday, and then on Sunday it'll be Yarbrough going for the Rays in some capacity. It's his day to pitch, and then Patrick Sandoval going for the Anaheim Angels. A 7 o'clock start on Friday, 4 o'clock start on Saturday, and a 1 o'clock start, of course, Sunday afternoon. So, overall, just looking at kind of these two teams, as I just lost my Anaheim schedule, but I'll pull that back up. Of course, the Angels, a couple games under 500. They are 4th in the American League West. It seems like they have kind of been off and on lately. I think they got back to 500, and it might have been a couple games above. They were 36-35. Before that, 33-32. So been bouncing around, and it seems like lately they've been taking care of business against bad teams. Like lately, a series victory over the Detroit Tigers, a series sweep of the Arizona Diamondbacks, a sweep over the Royals, a split against Seattle. But lately, when they played good teams, they got swept by the Giants. They lost, I think, split another series to the Giants. They got swept by Oakland. They lost, or they split another series to Oakland, and then lost a series to Oakland, and lost a series to Cleveland, and then had lost a couple series to Houston. So basically what I could gather from that is they're taking care of business of teams they're supposed to be, again, like the Tigers and Diamondbacks, but against better teams like the Astros or the Athletics, they have been falling short. And I know I don't need to remind you about the 4-game sweep that the Rays had in Anaheim against the Angels earlier this year, May 3rd through the 6th. And that was at a time where the Rays weren't even doing so great, and that's kind of where they had found their stride. And, the Rays were at 500 on, I think, May 19th. So kind of the sign maybe of things to come and what that team could be when things were kind of firing on all cylinders. Luis Patino got a start and a win back then. So and Glasnow got his 4th win of the season way back then. The beginning of May, that seems like forever ago, doesn't it? But so far this season, what we have, the Rays very good against Anaheim. Again, 4 wins in 4 games. And Los Angeles, Anaheim, I'm going back and forth. That'll be fun to do this weekend. They have not been much better against any other good teams as well. So all signs pointing to a successful, hopefully, weekend set for the Tampa Bay Rays. Looking at kind of the overall team stats and comparing them to what the Rays have done as a team, the Angels are hitting .255 compared to the Rays at .228, so their offense has been better, although they've scored 6 less runs than the Rays, 366, 360. They've got about 60 more hits, 637 to 585 for Tampa Bay. They've got 7 more homers, so very close, 3-point differential and on-base percentage. And where it's different is the pitching, specifically the earned run average. The team ERA for Anaheim, 4.85. So they're basically giving up 5 runs a game. And the ERA for Tampa Bay, of course, 3.41. So basically almost a run and a half lower for Tampa Bay. Walk numbers much lower for the Rays. Strikeout numbers about the same. And opponent batting average is about 20 points higher for the Angels. So pitching much worse for the Angels. Offense about the same between these two teams. Mike Trout is currently still out with a calf injury. I think Shohei Ohtani is still doing his thing. A couple of other injuries for the Angels. Justin Upton and Kurt Suzuki are both day-to-day. That was as of a couple days ago, so I assume that's still the case. So they are a little bit banged up. And, of course, the one thing that hasn't changed since May, the pitching staff is still pretty dreadful. The guy that will go tomorrow as we preview tomorrow's contest is 7-10 matchup between these two teams to open the weekend set. It'll be the righty Griffin Canning. This year, Canning is the 25-year-old right-hander, is 5-4 on the season with a 5.07 earned run average. Is having a decent month in June. He's hit a 4.20 ERA this month. His last time out against the Oakland Athletics in Oakland, 5 innings, 2 runs on 3 hits, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, so not a lot of swing and miss in his game. Did give up a homer as well and just 69 pitches thrown, so kind of a short start for him there, I suppose. And has not gone over 100 pitches at all this season, which is a little bit strange. I was there actually for his first start of the season in Dunedin. He went 5 1/3 of a couple, or actually 4 runs against Toronto there. Has not done a whole lot else. I mean, 5 2/3 of a run against the Dodgers, 6 innings of 2 runs against the Red Sox. But outside of that, not too bad. One of his June starts on the 9th, 6 2/3 of a run against Kansas City. That would be his best start of the year. Looking at his scouting report, his last time out against the Athletics, a fastball. I mean, what else is new? At about 92, 93. Although I thought Nick Pivetta was going to be 92, 93, and he was throwing 97, so I don't know what was up with that. Maybe it just takes some time to, I guess, get warmed up into the game. It's about 93 on the fastball for Canning. He's got a curveball, low 80s off of that, and it looks like that's it. He's got a changeup that he can throw low 90s as well, so not much slower than the fastball, and that looks about it. Fastball, curveball, changeup. And a curveball pitch that has been messing the Rays up like you wouldn't believe lately. And hopefully not a bad guy to get back on track against that pitch. And with, a third straight game against a righty. Similar lineup, I think. Maybe you shake things up. Maybe give Yandy Diaz the day off, I suppose. So probably Margot in left, Kiermaier in center, or Rosarena in right, or switch the corners, but those are the 3 outfielders, and then Wendell at third, Wanderer at shortstop, Lau at second, Choi at first. DH would be Austin Meadows probably, and then the catcher. They could go Mejia on a back-to-back and night game after night game, but it seems like they've been going back and forth lately, so maybe Zunino, especially if they're going to go bullpen day. And for the Rays, it'll be Andrew Kittredge to start. Couldn't get out of the first inning in his start on Tuesday. He also appeared on Wednesday, so has been used quite a bit lately, but thankfully did not pitch tonight because that would have been hard to do to have him to start. And I think they really were trying to keep him in the bullpen and not on the mound tonight, and thankfully they were able to do just that. Got in a bit of trouble, 1-out walk to Verdugo, and then a single to Bogarts that make it first and second with 2 outs, and then they ended up taking him out of the game and went to Yarbrough, who, quite frankly, did not do much better. So he's going to open, hopefully a little bit better this time, for Josh Fleming to follow. And to preview Fleming, he is the 25-year-old left-hander, is 6-4 in the season with a 359 earned run average. Kind of a fastball, changeup, slider guy, works very fast, picks around the corners, especially is going to go outside, down and away to right-handers, and continues to pick at that edge. Basically, tries to get the batters to widen their strike zone and chase further and further out of the zone during an at-bat. That's pretty much what he does. So I'm not quite sure who the home plate umpire is going to be tomorrow, but that seems to be awfully dependent on how well Fleming is going to do in a start. This season did start against Anaheim on May the 6th. 5 innings of 3 runs on 6 hits, a walk, and 3 strikeouts in there as well. He's never been a big strikeout guy. And threw only 67 pitches in the 5 innings, so was awfully efficient. His last time out overall, June 19th against the Mariners, 6 1/3, 5 runs on 7 hits, a homer, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, 110 pitches, which I believe is a career high and certainly a season high. I didn't think anything out of the ordinary. Still gave him some length with all the base runners that he'd given up, 9 of them. But I think was just throwing kind of his normal stuff. Only walked 2 I think just sometimes you're going to get hit around, and the Mariners were red hot that series. I think they've since cooled off a bit, but they just caught the Mariners at a really bad time, and in a place where the Rays have not been able to win either. I think they're 3-13 there since 2016, and winless outside of that sweep there in 2019. Miraculous how they were able to do that, but outside of that, has been winless there. So. Not that you can just completely throw it out the window, but something to consider. His time before that, 4 shutout innings against the Orioles, and then 7 innings of 5 runs against the Rangers. So it seems like he either goes, 4 or 5 scoreless, or he goes 6 or 7 and gives up a bunch of runs, and that's kind of been the case this year. 6 innings of 3 runs against the Astros, 6 innings, 4 runs against the Blue Jays. So I think maybe the key is really not seeing that many batters. I know it's Rays fans cringe when they hear this, but third time through the order is a big thing probably for Flem. So, and that's part of why you have Kittredge open. With just a day's rest, I'm not sure how far Kitt could go, but I could see maybe him wanting to face not just the first inning guys, how efficient he can be. And his stuff has been pretty good lately. So if he opens up well in the first with a 1-2-3, maybe you have him try and finish the second, or just maybe start one and then find a nice landing spot for Flem and let him go to work. And Flem has been good out of the bullpen as well. It doesn't seem like something that bothers him. And is a guy that kind of, his stuff plays anywhere, any park, against kind of any lineup, righty, lefty, whatever. He's going to be the same. He was pitching in the frigid temperatures of Kansas City. Stuff was, kind of playing 5 1/3 shutout there in his second appearance of the year. It could be in Yankee Stadium where he's done, decently, or in the Trop, anywhere. Again, anytime, any place, anywhere. Flem is consistent, and he's going to give you the same stuff. And it's sometimes he's going to get hit around, sometimes he's not. Kind of more of an extreme version of kind of the Yarbrough scenario where it could really be up for grabs on kind of what his stat line is going to be, but we'll give the team a chance to win. And the bullpen that would come out behind him, Rasmussen, I would imagine, will be available on a back-to-back. Whistler, probably not on the 3rd straight day. Thompson, no, on a 4th straight day. Fireisen, probably not. He pitched an inning off a day's rest of 2 innings, so I would try and give him the day off. But you got Fairbanks, who would probably be ready, unless he needs to go on the injured list. But if he's still on the roster, I would imagine that's because he's healthy. So he could be ready to go. So is Castillo, and then Kittredge will start. And then that leaves them with Jeffrey Springs, and that's about it. So let's say maybe Kittredge goes for 1, although I think he could go 2. Fleming goes for maybe 5 to follow, so that gets you through 6. Then if you're winning, you can maybe go Springs in the 7th, Castillo in the 8th, Fairbanks in the 9th, whatever you want to do. But again, those are the names that I listed that could probably go as well. McHugh went 3 innings on Tuesday, so on 2 days rest, probably would not be available to go, but maybe later this weekend, as it will be McClanahan and Yarbrough, so they probably won't need him. But that's kind of the beauty of McHugh's. You never really know when you need him, and that's typically not a good spot whenever you do have to pitch him, having to get bulk innings. But also, programming note, we will not be on the air after tomorrow's game. We will be on the air after Saturday's contest, I believe, to talk about that game and call it, about 10:30 or 11. But follow us on all the places, as we always say, to make sure you don't miss the show when it goes live. So I'm not going to preview everything about Saturday's game. It'll be Alex Cobb and McClanahan. The Rays knocked Cobb around the last time they faced him in Anaheim. McClanahan coming off a really strong start against Seattle, so you would think that would align for a win for the Rays, hopefully, as well on Saturday. And, of course, hopefully they win on Friday as well. So we won't talk to you tomorrow, but we will on Saturday. Thanks to everyone for tuning into the program tonight. As always, make sure you're following us on Twitter at WHBC Official. You can also follow us on the show page on Spreaker.com, where you're listening to the program right now. Also, for everyone for catching us on the Rays Reddit page, the Rays Discord server. I appreciate that. The listenership, as I've said the last couple of weeks, has been very good, and I appreciate all the support on there and all the well wishes and the good words from all the the great fans out there. Good time for the Rays. Great series win over the Red Sox. A great gritty win tonight. Good series against the Angels coming up. We'll talk to you Saturday.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.
News.